their economy is doing so well and their tax revenue is so good that they're less than $400 billion in debt. Why is dead broke America having to send $3.8 billion? AIPAC is not registered under FARA.
Marjorie Taylor Greene just went on Megyn Kelly's podcast to expose the truth about AIPAC and the Israel First agenda. In this clip, she gets into the negative repercussions of the U.S.-Israeli relationship, not only in foreign policy, but also domestic policy. And she just made waves recently, I think rightly so, for calling the Israel madness in Gaza a genocide, being the first Republican to do that. So let's get her take on this. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
This audience knows, and I know where you stand too on Israel and all that, but I've been very pro-Israel, and I've been very defensive of their right to defend themselves in this nightmare.
Of course.
And I've been very defensive of American Jews on campuses who are just being harassed, and it's ridiculous.
Of course.
But I have absolutely no skin whatsoever in defending any lobbyist group, including AIPAC.
Right.
So I would love to know what they do to get the loyalty of politicians, because I will say I have had multiple reach outs to me, both from friends and from connected people in D.C., begging me to go to Israel with them. And I have said no every time. I'm just too busy. I have 3 kids. I have a full-time job. I'm not doing it. But lately, it seems like it's coming to be even more, because I feel like there's a contingent of people who are worried that they're losing me. And I've said that you're not losing. I'm not on Hamas's side.
No, God, no. Nobody's on Hamas's side.
But it's been a while now that this has been going on.
Right.
And we're getting more involved with the Iranian bombing and so on.
Sure.
And my own feelings are, I'm looking at Israel in a different way right now than I was on 10/8, that's for sure, of 23.
Right.
And I can feel the pressure being slightly ratcheted up, like you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to. And I can see people like you, like Tucker, who I know Tucker. I've known him for years. And I've seen you in your early career. I know you have nothing against Israel.
Oh, gosh, no.
Never mind Jews. That's all a lie. But,
right.
And I see the beatdowns coming. Like, you're not allowed. Like, you have to stay right on this lily pad.
Yes.
And you cannot jump to another neighboring lily pad, because it could take you all the way down the river away.
That's
so
right.
I'm very interested in this dynamic.
Yeah. Well, I find it fascinating that you're getting asked more and more and more. I've been asked more and more and more. Well, you're a person of very big influence. You've got a big voice. You've got a large audience. They also take a lot of influencers. They invite tons of influencers.
Many of whom have invited me. Like, we're all going together, and will you come? Like, they seem to be coming at me from a number of ways, which only really kind of raises my hackles. Like, I'm not going. I'm going to stay right here. I can cover this conflict from here, and I don't wish to be wooed by any side. I actually don't wish to be persuaded.
Have you been invited by any other foreign country?
No.
Okay, that's the part, right? So we have tons of lobbyists foreign countries lobbyists that come to Washington, D.C. Pretty much every country has some sort of representative. They have an ambassador they send to Washington. It's naturally in their interest. We can understand that. They also are required to register under FARA. It's a law. They have to register as a foreign agent, a foreign lobbyist. That is required. It's extremely important. Here's the difference with AIPAC. AIPAC is not registered under FARA, under this law that requires anyone coming to lobby a member of Congress or a senator or department of the government and the federal government on behalf of another country.
Yeah, this is a special carve out for Israel. It is Israel's lobby's DEI program that many Republicans support. I'll start this off in a few ways, too, by saying I do have things against Israel, not only the Greater Israel Project, but the money they siphon away from the American taxpayers, the wars that they involve my country in that aren't America first, that have no benefit to America, the genocide they're consummating in Gaza right now. So let's just dispose of this notion that Israel is defending itself, like Megyn Kelly said. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad that these two women have reservations about what Israel's doing, but let's just go beyond the propaganda here. Israel isn't defending itself. What they're doing in genocide is a bloodbath. It's an ethnic cleansing campaign. It's a starvation crusade, and they've attacked 4 of their neighbors in addition to Gaza since October 7th. That's Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and Iran, sucking the U.S. into that war in Iran. So this is a conquest to expand its borders in the name of the Greater Israel Project and kill multitudes in Gaza while starving them on the American bankroll, sucking us into that war in Iran. It's not them defending themselves, and this response in Gaza was not proportional. It wasn't Israel defending itself. They could have maybe gotten away with saying that for about a second or two, but when the deaths that they've hurled against the Palestinians have, gotten like 100, 200 times greater than the deaths of October 7th, then there's room to criticize them, I would say. It's not them defending themselves. Let's stop repeating that, even though, again, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is heroic for being someone on the right that has come to terms with this and criticized what they're doing as a genocide on social media.
So AIPAC argues, but we're Americans. Yes, they are Americans, but they are coming to Congress and to the federal government asking on behalf of the country of Israel. And I fully agree with you, Megan. We are not against Israel. We are all for their right to defend themselves, just as we are for any Jewish person on campus. Just as I think we could talk about young white males in high school that are constantly getting beat up.
Yeah.
Guess what? They should have a right to defend themselves too.
And there's already assault and harassment laws on the books. And again, this isn't Israel defending itself. It's just doing the CIA and the Zionists and the Israel First crowds work for them by repeating their propaganda about Israel defending itself. It's not doing that. Let's dispose of that. But again, we still have to give her credit for being one of the best Republicans on this. But I do think it is counterintuitive to repeat those lies and propaganda.
People should stand up for them as well. We think anybody that is a victim should be able to defend themselves. However, Israel is the only country I know of that has some sort of incredible influence and control over nearly every single one of my colleagues. And it is, I don't know how to explain it.
I mean, I believe it just given the amount of reach out I've had in this position. And I don't vote on anything, And if I had taken money, I could see them really thinking that they had a right to control my speech or, my positions, which is why I never have. Of course, I mean, in what context would I? I don't take advertising from, random people. Like I always say, I have Genucel, whose cosmetics are really nice.
We love good cosmetics.
Yeah, but I can't be bought by a special interest group. But I can see it because, look, no one wants to feel like their position has been bought and paid for. But these politicians, they have. And so I can see why AIPAC would get mad if these politicians then turned on them and didn't support. It's like, what?
Yeah, you become persona non grata like no one else to turn against the Israel First lobby, that's for sure. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is right. AIPAC boasts about having 361 members of Congress in their pocket. That's something like almost 2/3 of them in their pocket to vote on pro-Israel causes. There's nothing that AIPAC lobbies for that's contrary to exactly what Israel's government wants. They collaborate. They, have these special trips. They get their cues from Benjamin Netanyahu, the war criminal, the genocidal maniac who's doing this genocide in Gaza. He's not the only one in Israel, of course, but that's who they're taking their cues from. This is a foreign lobby. Just imagine if Russia had a foreign lobby that didn't have to register under FARA, and they laid claim to 361 representatives in Congress. They'd immediately be blasted as traitors. Not as much so if you're Israel, I guess. And more people are waking up to this madness now, I think, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. But still, I mean, the disconnect here is impossible to ignore.
What did my 3,800 times 3 get me if you're not going to vote for my issues?
Exactly, because AIPAC are Americans, therefore they can legally donate to members of Congress and senators. So let's talk about how that works. AIPAC takes every single that they can, freshman member of Congress or first year in Congress, they take them on a very special trip to Israel in August. August is our recess. It's our month-long district work period. That's
Dems and Republicans or just Republicans?
They take both of them. Oh. Yes. And they invite pretty much everyone, to my knowledge. So they take them on this trip to Israel. I guess they go on tours all around. I didn't go, so I don't know what they do there. But they take them on tours, like the pictures we've seen recently of the speaker and other members of Congress at the Wailing Wall.
They've all gone.
They've all gone.
You see them all.
And they wear the kippah. And even though they're Christians, they're not Jewish, but yet they're adorning Jewish attire, and they're at these Jewish religious sites.
Yeah, you're basically just partaking in this Israel first ritual to, guarantee a bond toward Israel as it pertains to politics, even when they're not Jewish. This is the creepiest ritual I've ever seen, I would say. And I have nothing against, whatever religious practices you choose to do. But if you're claiming to be of a different religion and still doing this, it's just, fealty to another government. It's not even fealty to another religion. It's basically just subscribing to the mentality of Zionism and Netanyahu right now. That's exactly what it is. And Matt Gaetz revealed what happened on his AIPAC trip recently when he talked to Glenn Greenwald. As he said, when he went on his AIPAC trip, he had a hotel room and he left some event, before the rest of the group, and he went back to his room to check on something. And in his hotel room, there was a guy there. There was a guy there with no explanation as to why he was there. He didn't have a checklist, even though supposedly he told Gates he was just inspecting things to make sure everything was right. He was probably being bugged or, tapped for potential blackmail. That's what this is. That's what AIPAC is in the Israel lobby. It's bizarre.
Then they also meet with different members of the Israeli government. Now, we got to recognize the Israeli government is secular. This is not the biblical Israel. It is the secular government of Israel. And so they meet with their members of all throughout their government, and the prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, meets with them. And so they've done that trip already this month. The new freshmen and members of our leadership all went and they did that trip. Here's what else they do. AIPAC takes influencers. They take really big people like you. They want you to come over there. They want to pull you in because they want to pull you on their side. And why is that? Okay, for members of Congress, every single year, annually, Israel receives, and we have to vote on it. It's a yes or no vote, $3.8 billion in funding for Israel. Now, what does that money mean? Well, they'll say, "Oh, well, this is for Israel. It's them to be able to defend themselves. They're the only democracy in the Middle East.
Yep.
They're constantly under attack. They're surrounded by their enemies who wants to annihilate them."
That's all true.
He's even being too charitable there, because last year they got $20 billion from the United States after October 7th, and I think they're on track to receive something like that this year. But she's right. Prior to that, it was $3.8 billion, and that number had been established since, I believe, 2015, because Obama signed the JCPOA, which Netanyahu actually hated and the Israeli government hated, because it took the pretext of regime change off the table with Iran for a time. So that number was established, and that number's continued despite the fact that the U.S. is $37 trillion into debt. And by the way, when it comes to these trips and donning this garb and crying at the Wailing Wall, do you think, the Speaker of the Knesset comes over to the United States, takes communion, and prays to God? For it just doesn't happen that way. It's only in the direction of the benefactor who sends its money to the other country, to Israel, who's not the ally of the United States. The United States is its financial ally to Israel, no doubt, but there's no benefit to the United States out of this relationship.
Sure, we're not arguing those points. However, let's flip over and look at, what does this mean? Number one, Israel is doing so well with their economy, and I'm excited for them. This is a big deal. I wish we were doing this good. We're $37 trillion in debt. Israel is less than $400 billion in debt. Less than. If you're an Israeli citizen, you have government-funded health care and you have government-funded college. So why is America having to give Israel $3.8 billion? If they're doing so great and they're funding health care and college, and their government is their economy is doing so well and their tax revenue is so good that they're less than $400 billion in debt, why is dead broke America having to send $3.8 billion?
Yeah, no question. Great point. And you don't have to, be in favor or in support of this kind of domestic policy, wealth redistribution at all when it comes to this. But just the hypocrisy is still striking that they're able to spend so much money on this, on the bankroll of the United States. They say that the United States aid is just for support, for defending itself, really, which is, genocides and wars against their neighbors, really. But this is actually for empire building. And when you have that money from the United States, you can dump it into other things. I mean, there sure are a lot of people in the United States that would like those sort of things. And I don't prescribe the best option as government providing it. I think if the government got out of healthcare, like it was before the 60s and a little bit, before that, the healthcare would be a lot cheaper. It was. Ask your grandparents how much it was. And not only that, doctors came to your house and, accepted low premiums. People often paid in small amounts of cash. But when the government got involved, it got expensive, and it's always expensive. But nonetheless, there's still a striking hypocrisy of sending Israel so much money for this when the United States is so much in debt, and the United States doesn't even provide this.
Well, then they argue back and they go, oh, but this helps America's economy. Well, how is that? Tell me how it helps. Okay, well, because we buy money from your defense contractors. Although, guess what? This is really interesting. We give a ton of money to all these foreign countries. And if it's military aid, they're required to purchase weapons from our defense contractors. Except Israel is the only one with an exception. They don't have to buy from our American defense contractors. They can use that money to buy from Israeli defense contractors.
Oh, wow.
So there's a funny little exception, just like the same exception that Israel has, that this just came from Judge McFadden. He just had a ruling that you can burn any flag in the United States of America, and including our own American flag, except you can't burn the Israeli flag in America. I've turned...
This is completely in line with being able to criticize American states, carry out boycotts against American states, speak badly about them, and you won't be called a racist or anti-Semite. But if you say, something negative about U.S. policy toward Israel or something negative about Israel, and there's plenty to say in that regard, in that context, you're an anti-Semite. It's completely in line with that.
Radically and unapologetically for America. Just flat out for America. I'm like, I'm sorry, we don't have time to fund what you're doing. No, we don't. You guys are doing great.
If we had the extra, totally.
Yeah.
But we don't.
We don't have the money.
Yeah, no question. And man, I know there are some people probably yelling at the screen that watch this show that said, why do you repeat the propaganda? Israel isn't defending itself. But you still have to say she's a hero for exposing this madness to a new crowd that hasn't exactly been a captive audience to, critiques toward Israel and the U.S. relationship toward Israel. In fact, she was pretty heroic recently, where she tried to make a recent amendment just a few weeks ago to take $500 million that would have gone to Israel away through an amendment, and it was to fund the Iron Dome system. And this was made a big stink of by the Israel Firsters by saying, you're trying to deprive them of defense, but, their defense is intrinsically tied to offense anyways, because everyone knows when you provide a power, by the way, during a genocide with weapons, it can spend money it otherwise would have spent on that on offensive capabilities, which, by the way, it is doing in Gaza. So I say Marjorie Taylor Greene's a hero, not only for that actually also exposed AOC as a fraud, because AOC voted against this amendment while AOC also calls this a genocide, but she isn't willing to put her actions where her mouth is on that as much as Marjorie Taylor Greene and as much as people like Thomas Massie who have exposed this on the right. And man, this is just a groundbreaking thing. In my life, you haven't seen people on the right talk about this to the extent they are now, and why this is a threat, why this is backward, and why it's not a good idea for America, despite all the propaganda about how, they're the only democracy in the Middle East. Well, not as much as you would think, especially if you're born on the wrong side of Gaza or the West Bank, that's for sure. And that they're defending themselves. They're not. They're attacking their neighbors and having a genocide. But that's where we're at. I think this was a great interview, shed a lot of light. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, despite the fact she wouldn't go as far as I would in terms of criticizing Israel, she is still opening hearts and minds about this, and I think that's a good thing. And it's all the product of the independent media, where all of these talking heads' opinions are not filtered through a process that also is controlled by the Israel lobby, like our congressman, like our president, and like our deep state. So that's where we go from here. Let's hope that there continues to be a lot of critiques toward Israel more and more on the right. I think it's happening. I think there's a sea change happening in that regard, and let's hope it continues. But I do want to hear what you guys have to say. Let me know down below. Is Marjorie Taylor Greene right about this? What is the most negative repercussion of AIPAC's influence in our government? And do you think their power is slipping away, or it will continue to slip away through the years? Let me know in the comments below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Megyn Kelly too. I really appreciate this interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And then please consider becoming a YouTube member. If you click the join button below, you can get access to all my members only videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.